Hey foodie friends, so today we are going to make a few of my favorite Christmas treats. So we're going to be making Buckeyes, we're going to also make some 7-layer candy, and we're going to make some monster cookies. So let's get saucy. All right, foodie friends, so I'm going to start off with our Buckeyes. So I've seen this recipe on here a lot. I grew up making these because I'm from Ohio, so it's really popular there, obviously. So into our stand mixer, we're going in with 1 cup of creamy peanut butter. I just use the store brand, whatever peanut butter you like, preferably not a natural peanut butter, but if you're using a natural peanut butter, just make sure you stir it really, really well. Okay. And then we're going in with 1 cup or 2 sticks of butter. And I use unsalted butter for everything when I'm baking, just so I can control the salt. So again, whatever you have, if you have salted butter, that's fine. We're not adding any more salt to this anyway, because there's plenty of salt in that peanut butter. And we always made them where you just put everything in the mixer all together and went to town. We didn't cream the butter and sugar together first. So I'm just throwing that in there, and then I have about 4 cups of powdered sugar here going in, and a nice splash, about maybe a teaspoon, maybe a little bit more of vanilla extract. And then I have this paddle attachment that already has kind of like the rubber spatula on it, so it kind of scrapes pretty well. I do have a spatula on the side just in case I need to scrape this down, but we're just going to go in and get the. And I thought I was locking that, and I put it up on high, so you see what happened just there. Half of my powdered sugar is now all over. Okay, so after a bit of a quick cleanup, we are back. Don't do what I did. I thought I was locking my mixer down, and I accidentally bumped the mixer on and turned it all the way up to high, so powdered sugar everywhere. So get this going on low to get this combined really well. And we're just going to mix this up till it gets well incorporated and homogeneous and becomes like almost like a peanut buttery dough. There we go. So I added in a little more powdered sugar, probably about another like half cup or so, because I lost some. And this is looking good. It's not super stiff, but it's going to hold together well. I am going to refrigerate it after I roll these into balls so that they get nice and firm before we dip them in our chocolate. So okay, so now that our peanut butter mixture is ready, it's kind of like the consistency of Play-Doh. I'm going to scoop with a little scoop here and just roll these into balls and place them on these 2 small trays lined with parchment or a silicone mat. And then I'm going to actually pop these in the freezer while I move on to something else and let them get good and firmed up before we dip them in our chocolate. And then while you're dipping them in your chocolate, if they start to get too soft, you can always pop them back in the freezer or the fridge for a little while. You could just refrigerate these. I would say give them like probably at least a half an hour, but more if you want more like an hour in the fridge would be better. If I'm popping them in the freezer though, yeah, half an hour is definitely going to be good if they're in the freezer. They don't need to be solid, they just need to be firm so that when we dip them, because we're going to use a skewer or a toothpick, or you could dip them with forks, but I find that's to be a little bit more challenging. So if you just stick a skewer in the top of them, it's easier to dip them and get that Buckeye look than it is if you use a fork. And if they're firmer, it's easier to keep them on that skewer or toothpick. So I'm just going to keep on rolling these and pop them in the freezer. This recipe will probably make somewhere between, 40 and 60 of these, depending on what size scoop you're using. I think this is about tablespoon and a half, 2 tablespoon little ice cream scoop. So if you use a bit smaller, like just a tablespoon, of course you'll get more. All right. So foodie friends, I actually ended up with what, 30, 28, 32, 35, and one little tiny one, but that's okay because I'll just make this and eat it myself. So anyway, so again, popping these in the freezer, and I'm gonna move on to something else. And once these are, once I'm done with that, I'll come back and these will be firm and we will dip them in our chocolate. Okay, foodie friends, so next up is what we called 7-layer candy when I was growing up. So it's a layered bar with a lot of stuff in there. There's butterscotch chips, chocolate chips, coconut, walnuts. What I did realize though when I was making it one year was that there's actually only really 6 layers unless they count the butter and the graham crackers in the first layer as 2 separate layers. So what I did was, because this is really decadent and really rich with all the sweet stuff that's in there, is I decided to add a true 7th layer, and I'm topping it with a little bit of flaky salt, round out the flavor a little bit and cut through some of that sweetness. So I'm gonna mix up 1 cup of graham cracker crumbs here with a stick of melted butter, making this, graham cracker crust like you would for a cheesecake or key lime pie. Once that's good and mixed, I have a 9x13 baking dish here, and that's going to go into the bottom of here, and we're going to spread that out nice and evenly. It's going to be a thin layer. Like I said, these are really rich and really decadent, so you don't want them to be too thick. So you might think, wow, that's not very much going into the bottom of this big pan, but it's perfect. So get that spread into a nice even layer. And this is super simple, guys, because that's all you really have to mix. And the rest of it is just about layering everything in here. And then it bakes. I've already got my oven set at 350 degrees. And this is going to bake for about 25 minutes until it's golden and, give those chips the chance to kind of melt and everything, become homogeneous and come together. And I'm telling you guys, this is absolutely delicious. It's one of, of course, like I said, these are probably my 3 favorite things that we used to make when I was growing up for the holidays. So just finish getting this in here and we'll move along. Okay, so now that I have this in a nice even layer in here, we're just gonna, like I said, layer everything else on here. So it's literally just 1 bag of chocolate chips. I'm using dark chocolate chips. Again, like I said, there's a lot of sweetness in here. So I like to use the dark chocolate just to cut through that. But if you prefer semi-sweet or milk chocolate, that's absolutely fine. I'm pretty sure that when I was growing up, we probably used milk chocolate or semi-sweet morsels for this. So that, and then 1 bag of butterscotch chips. These are just your standard ball ounce, 12 ounce, 11 ounce bags, whatever they are. Just your standard size bag of chocolate chips, not like the double size bag. We always just use the packages, so I never had any like cup measuring for those things. But for the walnuts, and I've got sweetened coconut that are going on here too. And now that is 1 cup of each. So 1 cup of chopped walnuts, just spread on here, just like everything else, in a nice even layer. So get that as even as possible, kind of spread it out a little bit. And then 1 cup of coconut. Now this is sweetened shredded coconut. You don't want the unsweetened one, or I guess you could, but we always use the sweetened. That's what the recipe called for, so that's what we always used. But I guess if you wanted to cut down on some of the sweetness, you could try the unsweetened. I mean, I'm sure it would be fine, because the last thing, well, not the last thing for me, but the last thing that typically goes on here is the sweetened condensed milk. So you just drizzle a can of sweetened condensed milk all over the top of this. And I'm not going to make you watch me do this the whole time, because it does take quite a while. You just want to drizzle this out as evenly as possible across the entire top of your 7-layer candy here. And once I finish that, I will come back to you. Okay, so after what seemed like days, I've got my condensed milk drizzled all over the top of here. And then, like I said, I'm just going to take some nice flaky salt and do a few pinches, maybe like, I don't know, a half teaspoon or so, maybe a teaspoon on here, just to help with that. Because it's, like I said, super decadent, super sweet. So this little bite of salt on top is going to give you a little bit of relief from that and just add an extra dimension to this delicious candy. So once this is done, we are going to pop this in the oven. Like I said, this is going to go in the oven for about 25 minutes, and then it needs to cool completely before we can cut it. All right, foodie friends. So I have here some chocolate almond bark that I just melted in the microwave in 30-second bursts. Now I'm going to go ahead and dip my Buckeyes. So I've got a skewer there, just dip it, kind of get some of that excess off the bottom, and place it right back here on our parchment paper again. Now, you can close up the hole here if you want to. We never did when I was growing up. Just left it like that. So anyway, whatever you want to do, if you want to close it up, that's fine. Like I said, just leave it. So we're going to get all these done back on our parchment and then get our other tray and do them as well. And then they'll go in the fridge just to let the chocolate firm up really nice and firm. And you can keep these in the fridge for like a week, but you can keep them in the freezer too. They'll freeze really well, and you can keep them in the freezer for like 3 months. You could do this with like dark chocolate if you like to. I mean, I just used the chocolate almond bark just because it was available and it works really well. But chocolate chips, regular chocolate chips, dark chocolate chips, bittersweet, whatever you like. You could do white chocolate. I mean, they're not going to look like Buckeyes, which, you know, is kind of the point. But, you know, if you wanted to use a white chocolate, that would be great too. It's up to you, you know, just do it as you want. And then you could even just dip the whole thing and just make like a peanut butter truffle. But like I said, growing up in Ohio, that's where these come from. And I just, chocolate peanut butter is my favorite combination. So these were like my thing when I was growing up in Ohio every Christmas. And I don't know why we always waited till Christmas to make them, but we never made them any other time of the year. If your chocolate starts to get too firm to do this, you know, just pop it back in your microwave for 5 or 10 seconds, thin it out a little bit more. Since I had these in the freezer, the chocolate is actually firming up pretty quickly as I dip them, but I'm going to pop them in the fridge, like I said, to make sure it gets good and firm. All right, that's it. The last one's done. And now, like I said, we'll just keep these in the refrigerator to keep them nice and firm. They'll be okay on the counter because the chocolate almond bark has some stabilizers in it, so it won't get super melted. But I like them cold with a little crisp shell on the outside. So that's it. Now we're going to move on to one more thing, and we will be done with our Christmas goodies. All right, foodie friends. So our 7-layer candy is done. So you can see how it's gotten some golden around the edges, and kind of the coconut on the middle gets a little bit of gold on the tips, golden brown. It's nice and bubbly. This is super hot. So it smells amazing, super sweet, but it smells so delicious. Now, like I said, we need to let this cool completely before we can cut it. Otherwise, it's just going to be a big gooey mess. So I'm going to set this off to the side on my rack here and let it cool down. And then later on, we will cut it and give it a taste. And I'm telling you, it's going to be amazing. Okay, foodie friends. So my next concoction are my monster cookies, or monster cookies. I don't know where, to be honest, any of these recipes came from. They're all recipes, like I said, that we made when I was growing up. So my mom had them, my grandmother had them. I don't think any of them are like, you know, original family recipes, but just my favorites of the things that we made when I was growing up as a kid. So into my stand mixer, this is a lot of a lot of stuff here. These cookies, they're huge, first of all, and second of all, this actually makes a ton of cookies. Now, I ended up cutting this in half, and only because when I measured out some of my ingredients, I realized I didn't have enough oats. The full recipe for this calls for 18 cups of oats, and by the time I got to 9, I was almost done with my container of oats. So I just cut everything in half. So in here is also everything, well, most everything was done by weight. So that was 1.5 pounds of peanut butter that I put in here. And I'm going in then with 1/2 pound of unsalted butter. Now, that's going to be 2 sticks of unsalted butter. I don't know, guys, I'm sorry, the metric measurements for this because everything was done in pounds. So sorry about that. I'll see if I can get the conversion for those of you who will need that and put it in the notes when I write the recipe on mine. So anyway, like I said, 2 sticks or 1/2 pound of unsalted butter goes in here. And the next thing is going to be 4 cups of granulated sugar. Why that one was measured in cups, I don't know. But, and 1 pound of dark brown sugar. You want that extra caramelly, molassesy dark brown sugar. Light brown would probably work here as well, but it's not going to have as much flavor as this is. So I'm going to just grab my other paddle attachment. So I have this other paddle attachment that doesn't have that whisk part or that spatula part on it. So I'm going to go ahead and get this creamed together really well. There's a lot of stuff in here, so this is gonna take a good while to cream together, but we're just gonna let it go, scrape it down, and then I'm gonna move into another bowl to finish mixing everything. Okay, I'm gonna give this a quick scrape now that it's mixed up and give it one more quick mix and then move on because everything was good and soft. Our butter, I let the butter sit out overnight, so it's good and soft, so everything's mixing in quite well here. All right, so that's good and mixed. So I'm gonna set this off to the side now while I whip together a couple of other things in a different bowl. Okay, so I have this other large bowl. I already have 6 eggs in here, so I'm gonna break these up a little bit. All right, so now that those are kind of whisked, to that I'm going to add 1/2 tablespoon of vanilla extract. So 1/2 tablespoon, that's one and 1/2 teaspoons. So 1 and 1/2, a little bit more, that's okay. And then chocolate syrup, so 1/2 tablespoon of chocolate syrup as well. So again, 1.5 teaspoons of chocolate syrup. Whisk that up. Smells that vanilla. I think I've told you guys before I make my own vanilla extract, so that vanilla has such a strong, delicious flavor. So next, we're gonna bring this back in. We are going to add this creamed butter and sugar mixture, peanut butter, into our eggs. So this is where things are going to start to get fun and interesting. And our oven is still at 350 from our 7-layer candy, so that's perfect because that's what this needs to be when we bake this. So in this is going to go all of our creamed butter and sugar and peanut butter, and we're going to mix this together. We're going to do our best not to make a giant mess, but you saw what I did with that powdered sugar when I was making the Buckeyes, so who knows what's really going to happen. Let's see if I can do this without sloshing it everywhere. Oof. This is getting hard to mix. Okay. So that's pretty well combined. I'm going to switch over to my spatula now because we're going to start adding in the rest of our stuff. So first things first, I'm going to sprinkle in some baking soda and get that mixed in. It's quite a lot of baking soda. It's 1/4 cup for the half batch that I'm making here. But we need that for a little bit of rise. These don't get too puffy. I like to flatten them out because that helps them spread. I want them to be actually really large cookies. So you could leave them, not spread them out, not flatten them like I do, and they would be a puffier, kind of thicker cookie, but I like them to be a little flatter and wider and a little crunchier. And then we're gonna go in with our oats. Now this, like I said, is 9 cups of oats. I'm gonna put some in, mix it, and then put the rest in, just slowly adding these in because it's gonna get really hard to stir here. This is your workout for the day, guys. All right. I'd say that's a little more than probably half the oats so far, so I'm gonna add in some of the chocolate chips. So I'm using mini chocolate chips here. You could use regular size chocolate chips. These are also, these are semi-sweet. So you can use semi-sweet, you could use milk, you could use dark, whatever you like. They just happen to have these little semi-sweet minis, so I decided to use those. So I'm going to go ahead and put all of those in here, along with some M&Ms. Now, I got the Christmas M&Ms because they had them, so I figured I'm doing these for Christmas. Let's do just the Christmas M&Ms, just the red and green. But, regular M&Ms with all the colors, those are fine too, whatever you want to use. And that was 8 ounces each of M&Ms and of the mini chocolate chips. I'm starting to get a little sore. It's really a good thing I did only do a half a batch of this because I don't have a bigger bowl than this, and this bowl is enormous. All right, I'm going to go ahead and just throw the rest of my oats in there and give this one last mix. Make sure everything is well incorporated, and then we will bake some. Now, this dough freezes really well, as pretty much all cookie doughs do. So you can, you can make this, you can bake off a few, what I would do is either roll this into a log and freeze it that way so that you could slice and bake it, or what I'm going to do with some of it is I'm going to portion it out with my scoop, and I'm going to freeze the portion balls that way. At some point when I want to, I can just take a couple out, and you could bake them from frozen, or you have to add a couple more minutes, or you could pop them in the fridge overnight to thaw and then bake them the next day. But like I said, our oven's already at 350 because we left it there from the 7-layer candy, and we're going to scoop these onto silicone mats and bake them. They're going to bake for quite a long time because they're going to be so big. And since I'm going to do 2 trays at a time, I will probably rotate the trays halfway through, front to back and top to bottom. So I'll take the tray from the higher shelf and put it on the bottom, and at the same time I'll rotate the tray. What was facing the back will be towards the front, and vice versa. Ooh, that's quite a workout, guys. Great, that looks good. That looks good and homogeneous. So now I'm going to go ahead and scoop them out. So I have 2 sheet trays here with silicone mats on them, and I'm going to use, this is a full-size ice cream scoop. This is 3 tablespoons. It says right here. I think you can see that. And I'm going to scoop a full scoop and put it on here, and then I'm going to flatten it down because, like I said, I want them to spread and get nice and crispy. I'm probably only going to do 3 of these on each cookie sheet because, like I said, they do become quite big. And I'm going to dip my fingers in a little bit of water because this was really sticking to me, so just a little bit of water will help to keep your hands from sticking to the top of the cookie too much. And then I looked at these and I decided I had some more of the M&Ms left, so I'm going to just put a few right on top just so they all kind of look like they've got a decent amount of M&Ms. I mean, they do for sure, but a few extra is not going to hurt anybody. All right. Now, like I said, into the oven, and then we'll cool them. All right, foodie friends. So here are my cookies out of the oven. So I don't know if my oven is a little off on calibration, or if I just wrote down the recipe incorrectly after my mom gave it to me, but these were only in there for about like 18 minutes, and they are definitely done. So just keep an eye on them if you're going to make these. Like I said, the recipe does say 25 to 30 minutes, but they definitely did not need that long. So I'm gonna let these cool for a little bit on the pan, and then I'll move them over to this rack and let them cool completely. All right, foodie friends. So here are all my beautiful cookies and candies. These amazing monster cookies, our Buckeyes, and the 7-layer candy. So I already cheated and tasted everything, so I probably won't taste them now. I just will tell you though, these cookies are so good. Chock full of peanut butter. They are crunchy on the edges, and that dark brown sugar keeps them nice and kind of chewy in the center. So delicious. The 7-layer candy, so decadent. Like these little squares, you could even probably cut that in half, but I think this is perfect. And that little touch of flaky salt on top just helps to cut through all that richness. But these are so, so good. You're gonna love them. And Buckeyes, I mean, they're a classic, especially, I'm from Ohio, something that we made, like I said, all the time when I was growing up. Only on the holidays, though. I know I never got why we only made them on the holidays. So anyway, guys, thank you so much for joining me here on Getting Saucy with Chef Lynn. I'm going to put links to all of these recipes in the description box below. And, you can follow me across all social media at Chef Lynn Wheeler. And my website where this will be is cheflynnwheeler.com. Yeah, thanks so much for joining me, guys. You guys have a happy holiday and prosperous new year. And I'm going to have one of these anyway. The ultimate holiday treat.